Good morning. So I'm here this morning to talk to you about standardization of national climate services and hopefully showing you how it may help support some of the decision making you need to make in the water sector. Now, what we'd often find in the Met Éireann is that people from sector experts may contact us and they'd be looking for climate data. And we naturally would say, of course, what climate data do you need? At which point they'd often turn around and say, well, I don't know, what kind of climate data do you have? And so begins a process. Oh, so you're looking for past climate data. Okay, well, is it hourly data that you need? In which case we need to look at our weather stations. Or if it's daily, well, then we can expand that to hundreds of stations around the country. Oh, but wait, your asset isn't next to a weather station. No worries, it's reanalysis data that you need then. But that's model data and it may contain some biases, so you may need to correct for that. Or you're building a bridge. Okay, well, in that case, it's return period data you're more interested in. Or maybe if you're interested in older records, maybe we need to digitize some data. But is that data homogenized? You're looking for solar data, no problem. I'd recommend using satellite data. Oh no, it's futuristic data that you're after. Again, no problem. You're looking for RCPs? Well, I'd actually recommend SSPs these days. You want it downscaled? No problem. Are you looking for the atmospheric model, or do you need that coupled with the oceans? Do you want to include phage components? You begin to get a feel for what I'm after. And to make matters more complicated, Met Éireann aren't the only people who measure essential climate variables around Ireland and provide climate data. A number of organisations around Ireland supply this information. So our sector expert, if he asks exactly the same question, he may get different climate data to try and answer his question, purely depending on who he asks. Enter climate services. What climate services aim to do is formalize that whole process and conversation we just had with our sector expert. Take, for example, a sector expert working in health. They may be interested to know how water quality might change into the future. In the ag sector, we need to know, we need to plant a lot more trees, we know this. But what species of trees should we plant now so that they're still performing well by the middle of the century? And how much water are these trees going to extract from catchments? The energy expert may be interested to know how hydropower is likely to change into the future. Or the emergency manager, he might be interested to know about flooding or coastal issues into the future. Or maybe you're just trying to figure out, is there enough water or will there be enough water in our reservoirs by mid-century to supply current stock of houses, let alone all the new houses that have to be built? So the way it works is you get that huge volume of climate data. You work with the sector expert to find out what the question it is they're trying to actually answer. And you blend the two of them together, extracting just the climate data you need to answer that specific question to produce a product or a climate service to help answer that specific question, which realistically will go towards a decision-making process, which is likely to be expensive and long-lasting. Now, under Irish climate policy, and there's been quite a lot of it since Paris, we have the National Adaptation Framework. Now, that tasked sectors in Ireland to produce a climate adaptation plan, how those sectors are going to adapt to future changes in climate. And the way most sectors went about this was established a climate expert team, and those climate expert teams went about delivering the plans on time and on target. Many of them looking to the water sector, who was seen to be ahead of the game in this space. And if that wasn't impressive enough, the local authorities also all produced plans. After these plans were delivered, there was some soul searching and reviews about how these plans could have been done better. And as we see this across Europe as well. One of the things we identified is that there seems to be unnecessary confusion at the time around who to contact for climate data what climate data to use, what models to use, what projections, what timescales, what resolutions. This was also picked up by the Climate Change Advisory Council, who also commented that greater standardisation and coordination of climate service delivery would be valued. Now, to try and address this is where the Translate project came from. Now, what the Translate project aims to do is two primary aims. The first is to look at all the climate projections covering Ireland, developed both within Ireland and external European data sets, global data sets, and combine all those data sets to create a common baseline set of climate projections for Ireland. And this is quite similar to other countries, UK CP18, the Swiss, and many others. This will provide a standard backdrop or baseline that not just government sectors can use, but all private industry as well. In addition to this, then, the Translate project also aims to develop some climate services based on these climate projections. These standardized climate services will help prevent duplication within different sectors trying to develop very similar products, possibly getting slightly different answers depending on what underlying climate data they used. The Translate project got put forward to Cabinet and got passed as a useful initiative for the Irish state. And the contract was awarded to iCheck, NUI Galway, and supported by Marai, UCD, UCC, and international consultants Del Paris. The project also supported by the CAROs, the EPA, the UK Met Office, which is important for Northern Ireland, particularly catchments in around the borders, ICARIS, Maynooth University Marine Institute, as well as DEC and the National Climate Adaptation Committee. Now, like all projects, they run over a finite time. The Translate project is a 2-year project, intentionally quite short, because we want the outputs to be available for the next iteration of the adaptation plans. But after the Translate project finishes, it's important that Ireland has some kind of an operational framework, one to house the results of Translate, which have been developed right across all major climate players within Ireland, but also to continue to answer all the questions that decision makers amongst all sectors, including the water sector, will have going into the future. Now, one possible solution that's been discussed at the moment is this idea of a national framework for climate services. The World Meteorological Organization, which is a branch of the United Nations, which all Met services are a part, including Met Éireann, offer standard best practice guidelines to establishing national climate services. The basic idea is that the sectors in orange at the bottom there, or in Ireland's case, are sector experts, would interface with a middle engine that's overseen by a steering committee. And this middle engine, which could possibly be a virtual centre made up of people already existing in climate service providers around Ireland, would work with the sector experts to identify needs and develop some of these standardised climate services. It's also in this middle engine layer that you'd interface with academia, existing resources like Climate Ireland, international resources like the powerhouse that is Copernicus. You'd feed from existing research like JPI's ERA4CS Climate Services European projects, many of which Ireland were involved in, as well as integrating international climate services networks, the likes of Climate Europe and others. So what's the advantages of doing this? Well, again, we see from other jurisdictions at home as well, is that typically to date, a lot of climate services in Ireland have been developed on an ad hoc project basis. So a project was established to answer a specific question, a climate service was developed, which may be a map based on future climate data or otherwise was developed, and it does an excellent job at answering the questions it was designed for. Now, these maps may be flood maps or coastal maps or water scarcity maps or landslide susceptibility maps into the future, evapotranspiration maps, groundwater recharge charge maps. The list is endless. But if a lot of these products have been developed based on different climate assumptions, maybe different scenarios, and have different outputs, many of these may not be as easy to compare with each other as they could be. So the local authority planner or the water decision maker or the sector expert may find difficulty in comparing the already existing climate service products. If we enable these climate services products to be more easily available and developed based on a standardized set of methodologies and climate data, then the outputs of these can very easily be compared over a layered system or otherwise, helping all sectors make better decisions. And from a water sector's point of view, water, as we all know, crosses many sectors, so it's particularly important in cross-sectoral decision making. Now, this standardized initiative, which works very well in other countries and is beginning here with the Translate project, will hopefully help to support the water sector make decisions into the future, particularly when it comes to cross-sectoral decision making. With that, I'll leave it there. I'll pass you back and I wish you well for the rest of your day.